Now let's talk about Sting. Sting also spoke at the media scrum. And he spoke on the possibility of retiring at Wembley Stadium. He said he has not decided on a date. A lot of people were wondering, he said, if he might retire there at All In. He said that would be kind of cool, but it's not happening. He's going to continue on. He said Tony's been in his ear lately telling him, hey, Steve, you can stay as long as you want. He's pulling a Dixie on him. That's what Dixie did for years. She kept talking Sting into these little one-year contract renewals, which is why it took so long for him to go to WWE. Tony's going to end up doing the same thing. One more year, Steve, one more year. Sting's going to be 70 years old, still cashing those checks. Actually, he'll be lucky to make it to 70 in one piece if he keeps taking bumps like the one he took on Dynamite. It was Sting and Darby Allin in a Tornado Tag Team match in the main event against Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara. And Darby and Sting, they set two tables up side by side outside the ring. And Sammy Guevara was laid out across the first one. And they had a giant ladder in the ring. And Darby climbed to the top. And then Sting starts climbing on the opposite side of the ladder. So now he and Darby are face to face. And Darby's like, what are you doing? And Sting is like, I got this. I want to do it. So Darby climbs down. He and the referee are steadying the ladder. Sting turns around, and he's beating his chest, and he dives. A 64-year-old Sting dives off the top of this giant ladder. Now, I could tell, before Sting even jumped, and Taz on commentary was like, he's like my fucking spirit animal here. He's like, he's too far away. He's not going to make it. And I'm thinking, yeah, no shit. It was very clear he was too far away. And they set the tables up, so they can't even blame anybody. They're the ones who set the tables up that far away in the first place. But if the tables were just moved over a few feet, it would have made all the difference in the world. But it was so clear. Now, maybe somebody who's younger or a little smaller, like a Darby. Darby probably could have launched himself, right? But Sting can't do that. Sting's 64 years old. As it was, he still got more distance than I thought he would. I thought he was going to totally whiff. But he did not get the distance that he needed. So he jumps, and he does crash through Sammy on the first table, but he smashes his mouth, I believe, into the edge of the second table. The second table did not break. The second table got off unscathed. But Sting smashed his mouth, and he had his mouth tightly closed. I could tell. I'm thinking, okay, he just knocked all of his teeth out. He had blood dripping down his mouth. When the show was over, he cut a promo in the ring for the live crowd. He thanked everybody, and he said, in his words, one of his teeth was halfway knocked out, and he was probably going to need stitches in his lip. But it was worth it to do it all in front of you fans. Here's what I'm getting out of this. The more I see Sting taking these crazy bumps, is that Darby Allin is a terrible influence on Sting. He is just a horrible influence on this man. I also thought, as far as the match, because Sting did come back. Credit to him. He made it back into the match because he was part of the finish. He and Chris Jericho got more ring time in this match than I was expecting, considering that it seems to me like Sting one-on-one with Jericho is probably the direction for Wembley. Again, that's just me assuming things here. But if that is the plan, it's just strange because he tapped out Jericho in the Scorpion Deathlock for the finish. And again, they shared quite a bit of ring time together here at the end of this. So now having seen this, having seen them in the ring for several minutes and Sting tapping him out with his finish, I don't have much of an appetite for a full-blown singles match between these two. I got my fix of them in this tag team match. That was more than enough. A singles match is going to need a lot of smoke and mirrors. I mean, any Sting singles match is going to need smoke and mirrors. And you know Sting is going to try something crazy again. And I just, every time and I had people who said to me, he's a grown man. Don't tell him what he can do. He can do whatever he wants. No shit. He can do whatever he wants. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Chief. Yeah, of course, he can do anything he wants. And guess what? As a fan of him and as a fan of his work and a viewer of the show, I can comment and give my opinion. You don't like it? Fuck off. My opinion is this. Every time I see Sting do something like that, he's tempting fate. He did the balcony dives, and usually you got this crowd of people down below there to catch him. And that's one thing. I mean, that's not that it's not dangerous. Of course it's dangerous. But, that's different. When I see him climbing ladders and jumping, or like a grand slam last year when he gets pushed off the top rope and he takes a bump through a table, and even that one, he missed the second one and hit his head on the table and got bloodied up. It's just, it's tempting fate in a way that he does not need to be tempting fate. This is a man who, we didn't know if we'd ever see him back in the ring again when he got hurt in the match with Seth Rollins, right? And that was one of those things. He took the buckle bomb and he lost his legs underneath him, and that could have ended very badly. And he had an injury coming out of that match, and WWE was not going to allow him to wrestle again, which is why ultimately he left WWE, and Tony Khan ended up swooping in years later and brought him into AEW, which was originally only supposed to be for cinematic matches. And look at what it's turned into. And Sting, man, Sting's the fucking man. You see him, what he's doing when he's going out there and stuff, and the bumps that he's taking, and the way that Tony Khan, for the most part, has used Sting. He's used them almost perfectly, but now it's to the point where I see him taking these really outlandish bumps. And yeah, okay, so this time he only, busted his lip and knocked out a tooth, but what's going to happen the next time that he feels he has to outdo that? Or the next tall thing that he's going to climb to take some crazy bump that he feels he has to take when he doesn't have to be doing this? Yeah, so maybe it's his choice. Maybe he wants to do it. But that begs the question, at what point does Tony Khan step in and go, hey, Steve, I love you. I love you, and let's talk about what you can and can't do, but maybe let's kind of leave that to Darby. Let's let Darby do the really super crazy stupid stuff. So that's my fear. He doesn't have that many matches left. But man, that scares me even more, because he's getting close to the end. And he's going to be it all in. He's going to be at Wembley in front of 70,000 people. And what is this guy going to want to do on that show? And would Tony Khan even have the balls to step in and say no? So I just don't want to see something happen to this guy. He got a second chance after the Seth Rollins match. I don't want to see him go down in flames. Because Sting doesn't have to be doing that. I had one person on YouTube leave a comment yelling at me and going, oh, I love how Sting is reinventing himself. Reinventing himself? He's 64 years old. What is left for him to reinvent himself? To do what? To do what? To be a fucking crash test dummy? He's reinventing himself. Sting does not need to reinvent himself.